Io questa sera ti ho definita camionista.
Era proprio quello che volevo sentirsi dire.
What a wild experience this season was. Ciao ragazzi, mi chiamo Matthew, and you might know me as belakboy on TikTok, it's belakboy on Twitter, belak_Matt_ on Instagram, or you might not know me at all. For those of you who don't, I am a content creator that talks all things World of Wonder and Drag Race, especially that of Drag Race outside of the US. And I moved! If you watched my Down Under 3 video, you knew that I was currently in the process of moving, and I finally moved into my new apartment. However, settled is a little more of a challenging goal, as you can tell by how empty my apartment is right now, though I do think you can still tell that I'm trying to hide all of my mess in the corners here, but you don't have to know about that. And today, for my 4th video ever, we have a season that needs no introduction. But I'm still going to introduce it anyway. Drag Race Italia 1. Yeah, we got a big one today. If you were anywhere near Drag Race Twitter or Instagram during November 2021 to December 2021, I don't know why I said it like that. If you were anywhere near Drag Race Twitter between November 2021 and December 2021, you probably heard about how crazy this season was. Even if you didn't watch it, I promise you heard something. And its reputation really does precede itself, because what you heard, it's the truth. Drag Race Italia Season 1 was a roller coaster. I genuinely do not think I have had a more chaotic viewing experience for Drag Race than I have for Drag Race Italia 1. Keep in mind, 2021 was an insane year for the Drag Race brand all around. Remember, this is the year we had UK 3, Season 13, Down Under 1. And the fact that the legacy, if you can even call it that, of Italia 1 still holds up even in that entire year, well, it tells us that the craziness was just something legendary. Is that just my eye? I can't tell. Or is that just my skin? I can't tell. I'm blind, I can't tell. Oh well. Ooh, heaven forbid I have a blemish on my face. So, what was different about Italia 1? You know, Drag Race has had bad seasons before. Down Under 1 was a bad season. Season 11 was a bad season. All Stars 5 was a bad season. All of those with amazing casts, though. Italia 1 was bad. But what made it stand out amongst the bottom of the barrel? I'd argue that it's not the worst season of Drag Race ever. No, I can't say that when Down Under 1 exists. But I would argue that in terms of Drag Race, in terms of World of Wonder, it was probably the biggest fever dream that we have ever experienced. That seemed to be the consensus of the fan base. On IMDb, which I am aware is not the end-all be-all of opinions about a show, but it is a good resource to gauge a good population of fan response. But anyways, IMDb has Italia Season 1 sitting at an average score of 6.8 stars out of 10. In theory, this isn't necessarily a bad score per se. It is a D+. For example, Drag Race Down Under 1, which I know I keep bullying in this video, but it's just such a good example of a bad season. Down Under 1 has an average score of 5.8 out of 10. 6.8 is more of a score that you'd see on a confusing experience rather than a bad one. Maybe I could just be wrong and the entire fan base was just really divided on this season. I mean, if you do look at these individual scores, it is quite divisive. You see a lot of 10s and a lot of 1s. Either way though, I think Italia was just a whole conglomeration of weird things that made for a unique viewing experience. And these things you just think back to when you're like, did that really happen? So I kind of want to talk about that today. Exploring the legacy of Drag Race Italia 1 and kind of revisiting those weird things that just didn't feel real. And I want to share this exploration with you guys. And I hope that you might share your opinions and your experiences in the comments. Now, before we start, I am going to say this about every season that I might negatively review. Nothing that I say is directly pointed at any of the contestants that competed on this season. Their art and their talents are not meant to be targeted or ridiculed. In fact, we are going to embrace the talents of the Drag Race Italia cast where we can. because these queens put a lot of sweat and tears into giving us, the hungry Drag Race fans, this first look at Italian drag. And we should not only appreciate that, but celebrate it. Instead, my criticisms will always be pointed to production and judging, whether that be weird decisions made by Priscilla on the main stage, or choices made in the editing room. So, let's just keep that clear, and I hope you guys bring that same energy when or if you engage with that discourse in the comments. But with that in mind, let's get started. Let's begin at, well, the beginning. On the 26th of May, an article was published on the website of famous Italian media journalist Davide Maggio. The article was entitled, Boom! Discovery lancia la versione italiana di Drag Race. Tommaso Zorzi in giuria. When translated, this means Discovery launches an Italian version of Drag Race. Tommaso Zorzi in the jury. Among a lot of media outlets in Italy, this information spread like wildfire. And you found many companies, many news outlets republishing the same information. This article still was only reporting on a rumor because if you look at it, some information was adjacent, but still not correct. For example, in the article it is stated that RuPaul will be a guest judge on the first episode. This, as you guys might imagine, was not the case. However, RuPaul did make an appearance on the season when she and Michelle sent a video message during the finale wishing good luck to the finalists and the rest of the Italia contestants. But I digress. The official announcement made by World of Wonder would not be until July 1st that same year through the production company's social media accounts. Upon reflection, I would say that there was an overall good reception to the announcement. There was a lot of excitement built around this new franchise. Because if you think back to it, Italia really was one of the earliest countries in Drag Race's age of expansion. In fact, it was the 4th country in Europe to get its own franchise. It's actually quite fascinating to think about how Italia got its own franchise before other countries in Europe like France or Germany, or even outside of Europe, getting its own Drag Race before the Philippines or Mexico. But it makes sense, doesn't it? Italy is one of the largest countries in Europe, a huge tourist destination, and a thriving LGBTQ+ population in the big cities like Rome, Milan, etc. So it makes sense that World of Wonder would want to prioritize expanding their brand into that country. And that enthusiasm translated to the fan base. All the show had to do was deliver. And it didn't. Sorry for the change in wardrobe. I got tired, so I decided to take a nap. Drag Race Italia 1. What went wrong with it? Not even like what went wrong. What was weird about it? The first thing you might notice is that this cast is small. Like, really small. The first season of Drag Race Italia only featured 8 queens. And just for the sake of information, the cast included Ivana Vamp, Enorma Jean, Divinity, Ava Hungar, Lukeisha Lubamba, Le Riche, Farida Cont, and Elecktra Bionic. Now, all of these are amazing queens. In fact, this season introduced me to some of my favorite Drag Race alum ever, including Enorma and Elecktra. But as I said earlier, it is small. There is only one other season in the entire RuPaul Cinematic Universe that has a cast this small, and it's all winners, which wouldn't premiere for another year after Italia 1. And that was a non-elimination season. A non-elimination season really helps a cast of 8 because it gives you a large portion of time to get to know these queens without rushing to send them home. At first glance, it would not work on an elimination season. Because, like I said, you are forced to rush through every single queen since you only have a limited time you can spare with them. And so that is why the standard for a premiere season of a new franchise of Drag Race is 10 queens with 8 episodes. That allows more wiggle room to craft storylines, to augment fan favorites, etc., etc. But 8 queens forces you to have 6 episodes, which is just more constrained. But I mean, we have seen 6-episode seasons work before. Canada versus the World and UK versus the World are good examples, in my opinion. But those seasons would not premiere until 2022. The only other 6-episode season before Italia 1 was All Stars 1. So, it was anybody's guess. So in theory, we know that a cast of 8 queens and 6 episodes can work as long as they adhere to the standards of the format. So you go into the season thinking, okay, so there's 8 queens, only 6 episodes. That means we are getting 5 competitive episodes and a grand finale. So they'll probably do 5 eliminations and a top 3, Right? So apparently to the Drag Race Italia producers, that did not make sense. We get our first taste of this in the premiere episode. The bottom two consisted of Divinity and Lukeisha Lubamba. And the judges decided to make it a double shantay. Oh, I didn't know we had time for a double shantay. That's very interesting. But I guess whatever. It is the first episode of a brand new franchise, and I guess they wanted to celebrate that with a non-elimination. As long as we keep this train moving and have a couple more of eliminations.
Le riche, avant-garde, siete entrambe salte.
Yeah, that's right. Drag Race Italia chooses not to have one, but two double shantays. There have only ever been 2 other seasons of Drag Race that featured 2 double shantays. Season 10, between Eureka and Cameron and Eureka and Aquaria, and Season 14, between Georges and Jasmine and Angeria and Willow Pill. By the way, I am not counting the double wins in formats that you see in All Stars. I am only talking about double shantays between 2 queens that lip sync when they're in the bottom. But anyways, although double shantays are not themselves a rarity, we usually can expect at least one a season. Having more than one double shantay is almost unheard of. But you know what Season 10 and Season 14 had? More than 6 episodes. Season 10 had 14 episodes and Season 14 had 16 episodes. My point here is that although I do not encourage using more than one double shantay a season, those 2 seasons had the room to do it. Drag Race Italia, I am so sorry, but you did not have that luxury in Season 1. Though I was happy to see more of each of the 4 queens that you had saved, you were an 8-person season with only 6 episodes. Act like it. But that's not even the worst part. So like I said, the first double shantay was in the first episode of the season, but I didn't tell you when the second was. If you haven't watched the season and don't know spoilers already, you might think to yourself that the second double shantay was in the penultimate episode right before the finale. Nope, it was in episode 3. 3! That means we were 3 episodes into a 6-episode season, halfway, and already had 2 double shantays. There had only been 1 elimination thus far. We were going into episode 4 of 6 with 7 out of the 8 original contestants. That is insane. And it reflects kind of that fever dreamish element of this season, because you think back to this and you wonder, no, we definitely made more progress than that. But we didn't. Not even close. It's even crazier when you put it into this frame of reference. Enorma Jean technically lasted 4 whole episodes, but still finished the season with second to last place. Again, I want to emphasize that this is only a luxury that can only be afforded to regular US seasons of Drag Race because they have been doing this for 15 years and have earned those 14 to 16 episode counts where they have the room to do 2 double shantays. Let's use season 13 as an example. This was another 16 episode season, meaning that they had the room to do 3 non-elimination episodes at the start of the season. And so, Joey J, who also got second to last place, still got 4 episodes of screen time. But the finale of that season was still 12 episodes away. By the time episode 4 of Drag Race Italia dropped, we only had 2 episodes until the finale. And we were thinking, like, no way Italia is going to do a top 5 finale. But we've already had 2 double shantays. So there's a lot of ground to cover. How is Italia going to rectify that? So, I've been tiptoeing around episode 4 for quite a bit now, but it is time to finally talk about that fateful episode. Drag Race Italia Season 1 Episode 4 was the series' first Snatch game. All in all, it was actually a pretty good Snatch game. Though I could only gauge a lot of the jokes through the English translations and the captions, I genuinely enjoyed a lot of them. Some of the highlights from this challenge were, of course, the winner La Riche and Enorma Jean, and you know, while we're on the topic of Enorma Jean, could you tell that I didn't know how to transition into this, so I just did a messy segue. Let me give you guys some context. The Untucked 1 episode prior, on episode 3, was simply heated, to say the least. The tension revolved around 2 key contestants, Ava Hungar and Enorma Jean. I am going to preface this section because I think it is handling very sensitive subject matter to the Queen's own experiences in the workroom, especially that of Ava's and Enorma's. So, this is a disclaimer. It is not my place to speculate on what happened, but rather I am going to look at what we were shown as an audience. There might be some key elements that were specifically left out or intentionally left in the editing room so that they might craft certain narratives, but I will only be talking about the text that I was given. I am using these heated moments from Drag Race Italia to illustrate why I think this season is a wild fever dream. I will not be using them for anything more or anything less, because it is not my place to do so. If you want more information in your own time, you can see if the queens have talked about it on their personal pages. For example, I think Enorma Jean had a live on Instagram about her experience a few years back, but that was her prerogative to share with us all. Don't go scouting for more information than the queens are willing to give you. I want to respect the privacy and the boundaries of the queens to the best of my abilities, and I implore my viewers to do the same. But with that in mind, let us start with the former Ava Hungar. Ava Hungar's frustration that week came during the critiques when Priscilla, the host, said that she looked like a truck driver. During Untucked, she said in response, and I quote, "You can say, you're a little masculine. Why don't you explore your feminine side a little bit more?" And I'll say, yeah, I'll try, which I did also try to do. But calling me a truck driver without any respect for truck drivers and any knowledge about what drag f***ing is. It's a queer perspective on drag, not one from the 1980s. And being called a truck driver pisses me off so much because I think it's a lack of education. Education about what queer art is in 2021 in Italy and the rest of the world. I'm going to let those words sit with you for a second while we move on to the next heated instance in this Untucked revolving Enorma Jean. Admittedly, this is going to be a little less clear, so stick with me. Lariche was discussing her critiques and comparing her performance to other contestants. She pointed to Enorma Jean and said, "People who sing, but dancing, no." Enorma retorted saying, "I am 46 years old. Get to my age and try to do what I did before talking about me. Don't count Enorma out." Farida then took the opportunity to jump in and say that Enorma was saved. From here, it quickly spirals out of control. I will spare you the details of what exactly was said, or what the editors chose to show what they said, because it does get kind of convoluted. I can barely understand myself. But it seemed that the point of contention here was that Farida felt embarrassed or ashamed to be on the same season of Drag Race with a queen that dresses and performs like Enorma Jean. So the argument does get really fiery. Like, Lukeisha gets involved, it's a mess. But it results in Enorma not only getting upset with the other competitors, but with production itself. At one point during the fight, she pointed at the crew behind the cameras, saying, You, I am 46 years old and you put me in this." She storms off. And there is a producer that tries to get in her way, putting their arm in front of her, and she shoves him off before heading outside. You might be wondering why I showed you footage of Ava Hungar popping off and Enorma and Farida getting into it, but not Enorma pushing off the producer. That is because, according to World of Wonder, that footage doesn't exist anymore. You go to WoW Presents Plus and get about halfway through during the fight. There's a disclaimer here that says in big, bold, red writing, "Attenzione," and it roughly translates to, "Soon, the conversation between the queens takes an unexpected turn." And instead of showing us what that unexpected turn is, which was Enorma storming off, they just cut back to the judges deliberating. But this did happen. I remember very distinctly that day 2 years ago, and watching this the day the episode dropped, and being gagged at Enorma pushing a producer. So when I was rewatching this season for this video, I felt like I was being gaslit. Like, I remember this happening. There is footage of this scene that exists online, and I know because I had to go look for it myself to make sure I wasn't being gaslit. You can find that footage in your own time, but it truly was insane. But anyways, this was still one long-winded way, but still a flyover only, trust me, for me to circle back to talk about what happened in the next episode. So, right before the runway, Priscilla called out Enorma and Ava, who were in their runway outfits that they haven't even walked in yet, to the main stage. Here, the judges gave what I can only call a stern talking down to. Essentially, the judges were saying, "Listen, You are the roots of pride, and your favor behind the scenes was unbecoming. I have a gripe with this whole interaction. Okay, like, Enorma, I can maybe understand her getting this kind of lecture, because her argument did result in a physical altercation, but I will only understand it if you put it in that frame of reference. And to be fair, the only time you will ever hear me say Priscilla made a sensible critique, she did say, quote, "We cannot tolerate violent behaviors of any kind." But I really have a problem with what they said to Ava. Like, to this day, how they treated Ava Hungar in this 2-minute interaction still makes me question my sanity, because it is genuinely so outlandish. Ava was upset that Priscilla called her a truck driver, saying that that comment was both disrespectful to truck drivers and to drag artists that bend the meaning of gender. She yelled. She was upset. But she wasn't throwing things or breaking stuff in her frustration. No, she voiced an opinion from the judges that she disagreed with. She said her piece, and then kept to herself for the rest of the Untucked. So it's baffling to me when Priscilla says to her, "It's fine to disagree with our opinions, but last week, your dissent crossed every possible line." And I just don't agree. Like, I rewatched episode 3 multiple times to this day, and I personally can just not see anything wrong with what Ava said or did. So I have to ask myself, Priscilla, what line did Ava cross? What were her violent behaviors? Was it because she yelled? That she raised her voice? Okay, you know who else raised their voice? Farida Kant at Enorma. Lukisha Lubamba at Enorma. Why are they not being talked to right now when they also yelled and they also got upset? It seems, Priscilla and or judges and or production, actually, that you had a problem with Ava having a problem with you. Oh. I see. The commonality, the through line, between how Enorma acted and how Ava acted in the Untucked in episode 3 is that they both called into question and or criticized the judges or production. This whole interaction, this whole talking down to here, reads as the show punishing queens for calling into question the absolutism of production and of the judges, especially that of Priscilla. The show can't have queens talking bad about them while filming. No. The critiques are perfect, even if you frame them in a disrespectful way. Say, like, I don't know, just pulling this out of thin air here, calling a drag queen a truck driver because they present too masculine for your liking. I don't know. I mean, haven't you heard? Priscilla is the queen of all queens.
Ma sapete che solo la queen delle queen, che sarei io?
Her opinion is absolute. It just genuinely does not feel real. Nonetheless, this is what we are left with. 2 queens who the judges are not happy with. Now, watching this, you might think to yourself, okay, the judges are pissed at these 2 queens, even if it's unwarranted. And, well, we are already behind on 2 eliminations. Don't forget, we have had 2 double shantays up until this point. So we are kind of overdue. It wouldn't be too crazy to think, oh, are they about to disqualify them both? That would be a gag. 2 disqualifications in one fell swoop? Yeah, that's not what happens. The icing on the cake of this whole interaction here, they have to lip sync. Yeah, they really made these 2 lip sync to determine who would be disqualified.
We have a lot of nerve making the
lip sync.
But I want to see it.
So episode 4 of Drag Race Italia 1 features something we have never seen before on Drag Race. A lip sync for disqualification. We have seen disqualifications on Drag Race before. Willem all the way back on season 4 and Sherry Pie on season 12. But a lip sync? Do you guys see what I'm saying when I say that Drag Race Italia 1 does not feel real? We have never seen anything like this, and we probably will never see anything like it again. If I were there personally, I would feel a little humiliated if they told me I have to lip sync to save myself from disqualification. You know, like, am I disqualified or not? Just tell me and don't put me in this weird limbo. You want to know why? Having them lip sync may be your way of holding them accountable, once again, even if that accountability is unwarranted, but it weirdly invalidates the consequences to begin with. I don't know how to put this into words, but when I think back to a lip sync for disqualification, that just sounds too produced. Like, I mean, it is Drag Race we are talking about here. Everything is going to be produced. But when I think of this moment, and think of Ava Hungar and Enorma Jean lip-syncing to save themselves from disqualification, it feels as if production inadvertently watered down, or maybe even oversaturated is the right word. Oversaturated this potentially high-tense moment with the Drag Race brand itself. Like, I can see what production is going for. What is Drag Race known for? Lip syncs. Let's make them lip sync. Lip syncs are often the most iconic part of the show. We've seen people lip sync for their life, lip sync for their legacy, but we've never seen anybody lip sync to save themselves from disqualification. This will be a good way for us to punish Enorma and Ava for their poor behavior, and also make good TV, you know? 2 birds, 1 stone. But I promise you, Italia producers, that if you just disqualified them both right there, then it would have made even better TV. It would have been so gag-worthy. Twitter would have been blowing up. I would have been blowing up. Talking about, this one deserved to be disqualified, and neither of them deserved to be disqualified. Both of them deserved to be disqualified. It would have created so much traction and so much momentum. But now, people are left with, remember when Priscilla made Enorma and Ava Hungar lip sync for disqualification? No. Me neither. But alas, Ava wins the lip sync, and Enorma Jean is disqualified. And the cherry that is on top of the icing that is on this cake, they make Ava lip sync again that same episode. She is in the bottom, literally 15 minutes after saving herself from disqualification. And she wins the lip sync against the queen that she's in the bottom with, Divinity, who had a challenge win. It's just genuinely so chaotic. Like, I really don't know what else I can say about it. But, lazy segue number 2, there is just one more thing I want to highlight about this season being a fever dream, being chaotic, being surreal. There is a lot more I can talk about, but this is definitely my longest video ever, and I am tired. So let's finish this off with a high note. The winner. You guys probably already know where I'm going with this. If you weren't aware, the winner of Drag Race Italia Season 1 is Elecktra Bionic. Electra's performance is unique from any other performance we have seen by a Drag Race winner on the show. She has some similarities, sure, such as never having lip-synced for her life, which quite a few Drag Race winners can attest to. Where Elecktra differs, however, is she won the season without ever winning a maxi challenge. In the 15 plus years of Drag Race, in the over 50 seasons that have aired, there has never been a single winner that hadn't won a single maxi challenge until Elecktra Bionic. I'm not saying this in a way to invalidate her win, of course not. She is one of my favorites from the season and one of my favorites ever, but you have to admit, when you watch this season and you are going into the finale, Farida has a track record that we have often seen from winners. So we just kind of assume that she's taking it. And blindside, okay, che bella, congratulazioni Elecktra. And similar to the lip sync for disqualification, seeing a queen with no maxi challenge wins is something we have never seen before and probably will never see again. Maybe. But I will say, this season aired in kind of the era where track record started to lose its power. I would say about pre-2017, if you were on Drag Race and you had the best track record, you were going to win. The fans knew it, the judges knew it, no matter the storyline, you were going to win. Sasha Velour started to crack that mold. Sure, she had a better track record than Peppermint, who was her runner-up, but she managed to knock down the queen that had one of the best track records ever up until that point, Shea Coulee. From this moment, there was a shift on what track record meant. And slowly but surely, there started to trickle in winners who may not have had the best track record in the finale, but had that little something extra that pushed them to be winners. You know, Monet Exchange and Priyanka and Jada are good examples. Hell, even Shea Coulee herself did not have the best track record of All Stars 5, but it's undeniable that she was a winner. So when 2021 rolled around, the damage to the weight of track record had already been done. And so we get to Elecktra Bionic, who may not have had a win, but had that certain something extra, that vitality, that pushed her to win the whole season. We saw it in her little bit of love verse at the finale. We saw it in the 4 mini challenges that she won? We saw it in her looks. We saw it everywhere for Elecktra. I am not saying that for Rita or Lariche, who were Electra's 2 runner-ups, I'm not saying that they didn't have their own unique qualities that could justify them winning, but I am saying that just because Elecktra didn't have a win doesn't mean that we should discount the qualities that she possesses that craft a winner. It's just surreal to think about, though. Like, wow, we have a winner that has never won a maxi challenges. That's just unheard of. So I don't know if anything I said this video made sense. I think the video I made was kind of chaotic, just like Italia Season 1. To sum up, Drag Race Italia 1 was chaos, pure and simple. It was a massacre. It was a roller coaster. It was every possible synonym that you can think of, but above all, it was surreal. Nothing about it felt real when watching it, and nothing about it feels real when remembering it. Sure, we can reason and reflect to explain why they did what they did, but it's the fact that they did them at all that makes the season a whole fever dream. In some ways, it was a miracle that Drag Race Italia got renewed for a second season, because the fan reception was not kind to Season 1 as I explained in the intro. But alas, Season 2 was greenlit and was released in October 2022. And genuinely, in my opinion, to me, for me, para me, I think Drag Race Italia made one of the biggest, best overhauls in Drag Race history. Season 2 was absolutely spectacular, and it reignited my interest in Drag Race Italia again. So I can't wait to see if they keep that momentum going for Season 3, which I think is coming out in October this year. I'm not sure. But anyways, we have to remember that the possibility of Season 2 and Season 3 happening is in large part because of these 8 queens that were casted on Season 1. Even through the whole mess that was Drag Race Italia's production, they managed to give us some of the best talent we have ever seen in the RuPaul Cinematic Universe. So because of that, don't forget to show them love and support where you can. Follow them on social media. If you live in their area, go see them perform live. Do what you can to thank them for giving us a glimpse into their talent, into their artistry, because we do not deserve it. But, as always, do not forget, I am just a gay person talking on the internet.